Tonight, an upcoming pro-Khalistan rally in Canada. Will it break diplomatic ties between India and Canada? And human rights abuses exposed by a UN report on Guantanamo Bay detainees. We cover stories about the British Army compensating a former soldier for religious discrimination, the UN's urgent meeting to discuss the Quran's desecration, and a recap of Lifestyle Expo in Mississauga. Assalamu alaikum and good evening. This is Muslim News Canada on Muslim Network TV. I am Catherine Bullock. India has summoned the Canadian High Commissioner in its capital, New Delhi, over activities by pro-Khalistan supporters in Canada. The diplomatic action comes after a freedom rally has been called in Canada this week by pro-Khalistan supporters. A poster has surfaced on social media in which Indian diplomats based in Canada have been targeted. A part of India's Sikh community launched the Khalistan movement in the late 1970s. Sikh secessionism has largely died down in India after triggering violence in Indian Punjab. However, pro-Khalistan groups remain active internationally. Canada's Foreign Affairs Minister Melanie Joly said today that Canada takes the safety of diplomats very seriously. A media source reports that posters circulating on social media blame the Indian diplomats based in Canada for their role in the killing of Sikh separatist Hardeep Singh Nijjar. In June, Hardeep Singh Nijjar, who headed armed groups Khalistan Tiger Force and the Canadian arm of Sikhs for Justice, was killed by unknown gunmen in Canada. Nijjar was declared a designated terrorist in 2020 by the Indian government. Both the Sikhs for Justice and Khalistan Tiger Force demand the secession of the Sikh-dominated northern Punjab state under the name of Khalistan. The United Nations Human Rights Council is scheduled to hold an urgent meeting in response to a Quran burning incident that has caused widespread condemnation. The incident took place last week in Stockholm, Sweden, where a Quran was burned during a police-authorized protest. The Swedish government denounced the act as Islamophobic. The Organization of Islamic Cooperation has called for preventative measures to avoid similar incidents in the future. Reactions have poured in from numerous countries, with Morocco recalling its ambassador to Sweden indefinitely and expressing strong condemnation through state media. Additionally, protesters in Baghdad, Iraq, rallied in support of the Quran outside the Swedish embassy. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has emphasized that insulting the sacred values of Muslims is not a manifestation of freedom of expression, and he called for a lesson to be taught to the, quote, arrogant Western people. This incident has strained the relationship between Sweden and Turkey, as Turkey is currently considering Sweden's NATO membership application. Turkey alleges that Sweden harbors individuals Turkey considers terrorists. Turkey's foreign minister has urged Sweden to fulfill its commitments under a deal made at the NATO Madrid summit last year in order to move forward with the application. Chinese President Xi Jinping is urging leaders from Russia, Iran, and other members of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization to strengthen their ties and resist sanctions. The news comes after the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, or SCO, summit begins today in India. Iran is joining the summit as its newest and 9th member. Russian President Vladimir Putin has expressed gratitude to the bloc for their support during a recent failed Wagner rebellion. The SCO encompasses a vast region representing about half of the world's population, when including observer and dialogue partner nations. During the virtual meeting, President Xi emphasized the need to safeguard regional peace, ensure common security, and enhance solidarity among SCO member states. He warned against, quote, color revolutions and a new Cold War. Iran's full membership in the organization was also announced. India, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Pakistan, Tajikistan, and Uzbekistan are existing full members of the SCO. India, as a member of both the SCO and the Quad, which comprises the United States, Japan, and Australia, finds itself balancing diplomatic priorities. India has close ties with both Russia and the United States, and it remains an important buyer of Russian arms and oil. For more on human rights abuses in Guantanamo Bay, stay tuned. The British Army has admitted to an anti-Islamic bias and settled a landmark religious discrimination case brought by Muslim soldier Ibrahim Bayo. While deployed in Cyprus with the Royal Logistics Corps 6 years ago, Bayo faced unfair treatment during Ramadan. He was denied hot food when breaking his fast, even though other soldiers were given hot food at the time. Bayo was compelled to sign a waiver committing him to additional time in the gym under the guise of fitness requirements. Bayo also endured harassment from colleagues during Friday prayers. His initial complaint was rejected by the army, leading him to appeal the decision. The Ministry of Defense prolonged the case, causing further distress for Bayo. A ruling in March this year allowed the case to proceed to a public employment tribunal. This is when the Ministry of Defense apologized and offered compensation to Bayo. The Army's apology acknowledges both conscious and unconscious anti-Islamic bias within the unit and a culturally insensitive attitude from the chain of command. Despite being an outstanding soldier, Bayo decided to leave the Army due to the discrimination he faced. He now works as a taxi driver. He discourages his 8-year-old son's desire to follow in his military footsteps. A United Nations investigation into human rights abuses at Guantanamo Bay, led by Special Rapporteur Fionnuala Ni Eala, has unveiled disturbing findings. The detailed report, based on interviews with detainees, 9/11 victims, and human rights lawyers, exposes a lack of justice for victims of terrorist attacks and torture. Indefinite detention is identified as a key issue, with arbitrariness permeating the Guantanamo detention system. It leads to further human rights violations and arbitrary imprisonment. The report highlights the practice of sending detainees who cannot be repatriated to third countries like Kazakhstan, where they face ongoing arbitrary detention. Kazakhstan and the United Arab Emirates are specifically highlighted as countries where former detainees endure additional forms of imprisonment. These include house arrest and the denial of official status, ID cards, and essential rights like work, education, and family reunification. The report emphasizes that released detainees often lack proper legal status in their host countries, resulting in the deprivation of fundamental entitlements. The report recommends the establishment of a follow-up system to ensure the US government fulfills its obligations to remedy the situation it created. A lifestyle expo hosted by an organization called Muslimi was held in Mississauga, Ontario, just before Eid al-Adha. Here was a short recap by Saamiyah Syed.
The Muslimi Lifestyle Expo 2023, held this past weekend, celebrated 3 days of food, culture, and Islam just ahead of Eid al-Adha. From live performances by Buna Muhammad and Ilyas Mao, or lectures with Sheikh Saad Taslim and life coach Razia Hamidi, the event had something for everyone.
Muslim Lifestyle Expo is something unique that we're doing for the first year ever. We didn't want the traditional food expo or just the traditional panels or just the traditional nasheed concert. We wanted to have an opportunity for families to experience all the, great performances, all the food vendors, and all the panel discussions collectively in one event over a weekend.
The festival featured an expansive and bustling bazaar with everything from clothing to gifts and jewelry. And there was an interactive space for children too, where they could come in and play games on various consoles, take a turn on the inflatables, or help themselves to complimentary cotton candy and popcorn.
Today's event was awesome. It brought the whole community together. It got everyone super excited and super energetic.
The expo wrapped up each evening by going dark for the exclusive movie screenings of Super Hijabi and Purple Don't Cry.
Thank you for watching. Sound Vision, which is a not-for-profit organization, produces our news. We need your support for donations. Please scan the QR code on our broadcast or visit muslimnetwork.tv to donate now, so we can continue to amplify the voices of Muslims in Canada and abroad.